goodness gracious me. So just a recap, there has just been a press conference about this lost vessel. Still no real progress in terms of finding where these people are. 5 people missing, 3 of them British citizens. I'm with you right through till 7 o'clock. We'll be staying across this story, that is for sure. Keeping me company till 7 is the CEO of First Property Group and former Brexit Party MEP Ben Habib and political commentator Bushra Sheikh. Good evening to both of you. I've got to say, I've been glued, Ben, to this story. I find it absolutely fascinating. I've got quite an intrigue anyway when it comes to shipwrecks. I did a little bit of diving, like, you know, we're just talking then about the depths of this thing. I mean, the Titanic is 3,800 metres below surface. I mean, I was diving at 30 metres.
So was I.
Yeah, that gives you a bit of context there. And I'm just so fascinated by that notion of boundary pushing, risk-taking. You know, these people, many of them on board, really are intrepid explorers. They are kind of well versed at what they are doing, but we just got no idea where they are.
No, I mean, it's interesting. The Titanic, I think, came to rest about 50 miles from where it sank. So just in itself, that's, you know, 50 times 50, 250 square miles. At a bare minimum, you'd have to investigate. And I imagine this submersible is a lot lighter than the Titanic was, so much more prone to being pushed around. You know, they're searching an area the size of Connecticut. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack, isn't it? And they've got 40 hours, basically, in which to do it. It is almost, it is almost a disaster movie unfolding in front of our eyes. You know, tragic, a tragic story of people who are prepared to push the boundaries. I suppose we'll get more of, you know, what happened and how it all happened after the event.
Yeah, and just to recap, the 5 people, I think we've just been showing some of those pictures as well, so we know who it is that we are talking about. You've got Hamish Harding. He is a British businessman. Shahzada Dawood and his son as well, Suleiman Dawood, are on that vessel. Paul Henri Nagotli, Mr. Titanic, he was known to his friends. He's done this trip several times before. Very an explorer at his heart, so it seems. And also the CEO of OceanGate, the company that put on this trip, Stockton Rush is his name. So that is the 5 people that you can see on your screen as we speak. As I've just been mentioning to you, 22 foot long, this vessel, by 9 foot tall. There's no seats, you're barefoot, you're squished in. There's one tiny window, 380 millimetres to be precise, and a toilet, also known as a little box with a curtain. You know, I can't imagine what these guys must be going through, Bushra. I mean, I'm hoping that they are kind of experienced explorers and are staying calm. And we've just been talking then 40 hours of oxygen left. And, you know, I really hope that they stay calm. I'm really hoping that they will be found safe and well. But we just don't know.
No, we don't know. And, you know, one thought that came to my mind is that obviously going and embarking on something like this, you know, you would have to know already what the implications or what the risks of this are. So hopefully if they sort of knew that it potentially could happen to them or this can happen, maybe they are prepared for that. So maybe they are staying calm and they are waiting. But the fact that we know they have 40 more hours of search or 40 hours, that to me was like a real shocker.
Yeah, I mean, it started at 96, but as that Coast Guard press conference was just saying then, that is based on the information as it was. Paul Hawkins, you're still with me. That was based on the information as it was.
Yeah,
so we just don't know if that is still accurate or not.
Yeah, it's from, I mean, the oxygen levels somewhere from the low 70s up to 96 hours. So there's a window there. And also it depends how much oxygen they're using, because clearly 3 of the people down there out of those 5 are experienced explorers. Paul Henri Nagotli, he's known as Mr. Titanic, as you said. He first went down there in 1987. He's been down there many times. Hamish Harding has been to the bottom of the Mariana Trench for 36 hours. So they will be used to being in those conditions, and they will be advising the father and son who are down there, Shahzada Dawood and his son Suleiman, to try not... I mean, it must be so difficult to be in such an enclosed space and to have to learn how to breathe and not panic, to try and stretch out that oxygen and not exhale CO2 while you're in that tight, confined space. It must be absolutely unbearable.
The thought of it, honestly, it does. I'm a little bit claustrophobic, I must confess. The thought of it just sends shudders. Now, when you do these kind of trips and tours, because there are a lot of people, actually, that they are fascinated by these kind of scenes. They do want to push those boundaries, as we were talking about a second ago. But actually, the waivers and things like that you have to sign to get onto one of these trips and all the rest of it in the first place, they're pretty intense as well, right?
Yeah. You have to basically effectively sign your life away and say, I accept the extra risk that there will be from going 4 times deeper than a Navy submarine. So that's why they sign these waivers. But yeah, and they charge premium prices for these trips. This is $250,000, just over, just under
grand,
200 grand, per person to go on this 8-day exhibition. It takes about 8 hours round trip to the bottom and back. About 2 hours is the descent, which is why we think, because they lost communication about 1 hour and 45 minutes into the trip, we think it should be somewhere near the wreck. That's where it should be. The only alternative most experts are saying is it's either near the bottom or it's floated to the surface and they simply haven't spotted yet. And given the area they're searching...
And they've got, we've just been hearing anyway, we've got aircraft and all the rest of it out. This is a multi-agency search. This is a huge operation now.
Yeah.
So you would think if they were kind of bobbing on the surface, so to speak, this vessel, then it would have been picked up by now.
Yeah.
You know, there's some people saying, Ben, that actually this shouldn't be an industry at all, this whole kind of danger, tourism, whatever you want to call it. Some people are saying it's just not safe enough to be a thing.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, everyone has their own level of risk tolerance, and we wouldn't push the boundaries of exploration and scientific discovery if we weren't prepared to take risks. So I'm not sure I entirely agree with that as a blanket sort of assessment. You know, whether you go on it as a recreational trip perhaps is a slightly different question with a different answer. You know, if I were the father of that boy, I don't know how old the boy is. Do we know how
He's 19.
He's 19.
Yeah,
I mean, you know,
19.
19 as a father, he's still a child, you know, and you'll be looking at your son feeling pretty wretched about the situation.
But what
I
mean, you said as well that you've done a bit of diving.
Yeah.
I think there is nowhere as peaceful as properly underneath the ocean. I find it such a... you're disconnected from the troubles of the world. I find it so peaceful, so liberating.
It is, but
huge escapism.
Even at 30 metres, I'm sure you'll recall, at 30 metres, you've got to be really careful. When you come back up, you've got to stop, you've got to exhale,
Yeah,
you've got to repressurise.
You can get something when you...
Bends.
Well, yeah, that's it.
You don't depressurise properly if you rise too quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
You get hydrogen bubbles or something forming in your blood.
And that's very serious.
Yeah, that's very serious. It can kill you.
And we're talking about depths there of, 30 metres.
Yeah, exactly.
And Bushra, what do you think to whether or not this should be an industry, a trade per se?
You know what, until they don't risk assess and it's not safe enough, I don't think trips like this and adventures, I call it an adventure, like this should be open to people, just, you know, regardless of how much money you have to spend on it. And I get...
Why not?
You know... because it's just not safe, and then you end up having issues like this where, you know, this is also affecting other people. People are watching this and people are getting anxious at home, and I get that, you know, you're not there, it's not happening to you, but it's still just watching it happen, knowing that there is a 19-year-old on there. Like you said, Ben, you know, the father took him with him. You know, even me as a parent, I'm getting anxious for them. So I'm not sure whether these things should be available just yet until we do know more about it.
But then the flip side of this is this was their passion. I mean, we're talking about one of these people being known literally as Mr. Titanic. This is what he loved to do. This was his passion. He was an explorer, not just him. The other people on there as well, explorers. To do something like this with your dad, the trip of a lifetime, to see something that you've read about, you've researched, you've watched the movies and all the rest of it. Why should anyone else be able to say on your behalf, no, the risk for you personally is too great, so therefore you can't do that, if that's your choice and you're prepared to sign off waivers and all the rest of it?
Because also there is also a cost angle of this as well. You know, which is now that we've had to have all these different agencies come together from this search and rescue mission. This is also going to cost money. So, you know, beyond the $250,000 that they've spent on this is now going to be a combined effort from all these facilities and resources available from that country. It's going to cost money to do this.
Paul?
Millions.
Yes, millions.
Yeah. Paul says, Michelle, this might sound silly, but don't you think there might be a way that a cable with a magnet that could be passed down to lift them up. And he says about ships that lay cables. Well, actually, there is a ship, a cable-laying vessel that's helping out at the moment.
Yeah.
And I'm not really sure that a cable with a magnet on it is going to be the solution. But there is a real question of, it's all well and good, Paul, potentially finding this vessel. That's, great, all well and good. But actually then recovering it and the people in it, how does that happen? Do we know?
Which is why Captain Jamie Frederick, he was asked about that, and he said, we're looking at the salvage part once we actually find where it is, because it's all very well looking from above and going, there it is, now we've got to go and get it. So there is a salvage operation that they're looking at, that they're looking to swing into action, and it's interesting actually he used the words if they manage to find it, then they will put that salvage operation in place. They've got to get this kind of very specialised equipment then out to sea, and it's hundreds and hundreds of miles out to sea. It's a really difficult operation. So, yeah, suitable assets was the word he used, and they don't have enough of them at the moment.
No, they don't. So it would seem, Peter says, why would anybody do this? It is dangerous. And you're saying it's basically ghoulish as well. You're saying you can't imagine seeing anything more horrific than a shipwreck. Well, I can tell you, having seen one, they're beautiful. And I know it might sound odd if that's not your kind of thing, but there's something captivating, intriguing, mystifying, beautiful, detached. I can't explain unless you're into it. It might sound a bit weird, actually, but I absolutely understand why people would want to do this if they've got the means to do it. Would you, though? Each to their own. We are all different, and we are all, of course, praying that this does have a positive outcome.